Hey everyone, welcome to Data Umbrella's webinar. I'm going to do a brief introduction. My name is Reshma, and then Mukulika will do her talk. And if you have any questions, ask in the chat and we will get them answered at the end of the presentation. This is being recorded. About Data Umbrella, we organize data science and open source events for the community, and we are a nonprofit organization. This is me. Our team consists of Beryl, who's out of Nairobi, and Sangam, who is out of India. And this is the team in the background that makes these events happen. We have a code of conduct, and we thank you for helping to make this a welcoming, friendly community for all. There are various ways to support Data Umbrella. The first and the easiest thing to do is to share our events with other people. We also have some open source projects on our GitHub, such as timestamps, our website, and our blog, which you can check out. You can also donate to our nonprofit. We're on every.org as well as Benevity if your company uses it to make a company match. We have a YouTube channel, and we have quite an extensive library of videos related to Python, R, open source, and career development. One of our playlists is career advice. Other examples are data visualization, contributing to open source, such as Python, Pandas, Scikit-learn, Sprint. We have a monthly newsletter, which has been in abeyance for a bit. We hope to get it started, but we are at dataumbrella.substack.com. These are our social media platforms where we are the most active. And this platform is Big Marker. It provides live captioning. So at the very top where you see a CC for closed captioning, you can click on that and choose the language you wish and whether you want captioning to help. For our upcoming events, they're all posted on Meetup. We do have an event coming up in August, which we will share soon. We also have an online suggestion box if you'd like to suggest future topics, if you have feedback on this event, if you experience any technical issues, or if you'd like to speak at an event. I will share the link in the chat as soon as I am complete with this introduction. Today's presentation is contributing to the NumPy documentation. Today's speaker is Mukulika Pahari. She is a maintainer for the NumPy documentation and has been involved in the community since 2021. She's also studying to be an oceanographer and likes working on scientific software. You can find her on LinkedIn and GitHub. And with that, I will be handing over my mic and screen share over to Mukulika.
Thanks, Reshma. Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Mukulika, and today I'm going to talk about contributing to the NumPy documentation. I've been, as Reshma mentioned, I've been in the community since 2021. I joined NumPy as a technical writer for the Google Season of Docs program. And I worked on certain parts of the documentation during then. And then after that, I kind of stuck around. So these are what I think would be useful to newcomers in my perspective and some resources that can help them. So what are we going to cover today? I'm going to give a brief introduction to NumPy because I've been told that people also join in from with different backgrounds from R and Julia and things like that. So I'll just briefly talk about what NumPy is. And then I'm going to discuss what's NumPy's documentation priorities, where I think they are looking for more contributors, more help. Then I'm going to talk about the different types of contributions that you can make apart from the traditional ones that we know about, like making pull requests. And then I have some resources for someone taking first steps into the community. It's kind of a filtered collection of the many documents that you have available online. Then I'm also gonna briefly just plug other NumPy talks that could be useful and let you know how you can engage with the community. So, first of all, what is NumPy? So NumPy is a fundamental open source Python library. It's extensively used for data analysis and scientific programming, among other things. It provides the n-dimensional array object, which is its main product, and also various operations to work with that object. And it is very fast because it uses C routines under the hood for its functions, for its features like vectorization and broadcasting. And that is what kind of makes NumPy such a central library, because it helps people use Python and still do things quickly and fast. So here in the infographic, you can see all the different industries that use NumPy, and it's everything you can imagine. And personally, I am studying oceanography, so I use NumPy to do ocean model data analysis. Yeah, so that's what NumPy is. So, what are the NumPy documentation priorities at the moment? So, in 2020, they had this NEP accepted. So, NEP is a NumPy enhancement proposal. It is the way that the community proposes big features or big improvements in the project. And it's a central repository to have all these ideas, what is accepted and what people are working on. So this NEP 44 talks about restructuring the NumPy documentation. And the main goal for this restructuring was to make it easier for users to use the documentation, find what they're looking for. Obviously, NumPy has been around for so long that the documentation has branched out in many different directions and has a lot of content in it, but it can be difficult for people to find what they're looking for sometimes. So that is one of the main goals, to make sure that people can find what they're looking for, and also to add relevant new documents to the documentation according to what the users feel that they need. So, as part of this project, we are adopting the diet access framework. So, this framework basically tells us that our documentation is broadly categorized in four different categories. So, the first one is tutorials. And NumPy maintains its tutorials in a separate repository that I have a link to here. So tutorials basically combine both how to use certain functions, and also gives you some background context about them, why you should be using those functions for whatever application you've chosen for. So, for example, some of the tutorials we have are air quality data analysis. So, how do you choose which functions you need for the application that you're using it for? Next, we have how-to guides. So how-to guides are kind of like tutorials, in the sense they give you direction on how to achieve the task that you set out to do. But at the same time, it does not have explanations as to why you should choose um, that function or any background on that function, because it's supposed to be very straight to the point. I want to index an array, what are the functions I need, and you'll just have those functions. Then explanations is the part of the documentation where you have more wordy, lengthy documents talking about these functions, what is the background behind them, how do they work underneath the hood. So these explanation documents are equally important for users to learn how to um, remember which functions they want to use, and find directions to use it, to find the functions they need to use for their task. And also, finally, we have the reference guide, which is, of course, basically a list of all the publicly available methods, functions, objects we have. And it has all the call signatures, you have all the examples, and it is the main kind of interface for someone who's using the project for a while. So we have quite a few documents in each of these categories, but it's always useful to have new documents talking about newer applications of NumPy and more explanations, more how-to guides. So this is one way to contribute to the documentation, which is kind of high priority at the moment. And also by contributions, so I mean many different kinds. So traditionally, we know that we can submit pull requests to fix a certain issue or to um, propose a new feature or a new enhancement or to things like that. And then we can also open issues to say that, oh, there's something missing in your documentation or something is not rendering correctly. So these issues are obviously important and sometimes can be missed. So it's very useful when contributors, especially new ones, open these issues because obviously they are having a first look at the documentation and see things that people who've been using it for a while can miss. So coming on to other kinds of contributions, you can help review pull requests. So this can be a little involved for someone who's just starting out in open source in general. But if you have some experience working on other projects and other open source communities, then I think this is a great way to get into the community, see the kind of things people are working on, and it's always useful to have perspectives on documentation because there's so much diversity in the users, but so it's useful to have all of those thoughts and comments on pull requests. Then you can also help closing issues. So, as a new contributor, you will not have maintainer rights, of course, so you can't actually do the act of closing the issue, but you can go back in the issue tracker to many months, years ago, and see issues that are no longer relevant because maybe they've removed that feature altogether. That part of the documentation doesn't exist anymore, or it's already been addressed and it was a duplicate issue from some time. Anyway, these issues can just pass under the radar and just clog up the issue tracker. So it's always good if someone can just comment on that issue, hey, this is no longer relevant, please, can you close this? And then a maintainer will see that and do it. Then you can also participate in community discussions. Like I mentioned with reviewing pull requests, it's important to have different perspectives, it's important to know what the users want from the documentation as it's evolving, as the library has new features, new functions. So participating in the community discussions is a great way to contribute. And at the end of the presentation, I have some links to how you can engage with the community. So that should be helpful. Also, you can work on the website. Of course, having a functional website is a very important part of maintaining a project. And particularly now, we've started adding quite a few translations to the website. So if you want to add a translation yourself, or if you want to review a translation that someone else has sent in, you can do that on the website repo. Also, there's mentoring sprints, which is also a great way to engage with the community. And these mentoring kind of things are also good for newcomers, because if you've recently like set up your development environment or had a pull request merge, you have a more recent knowledge of what's going on. And I think more it's better to have those people help out newer people into the community. And apart from these, there are a lot of other things you can work on in the project, and you can find these out if you are participating in the community a lot, and then you can see what kind of problems the project is facing and needs help with. Now, saying that, on the right, you can see the NumPy comics. For the last couple of years, we've been using the Google Season of Docs grant to work on the NumPy contributors comics. And the comics kind of highlight some of the points I just talked about, but it's much more fun to read. So please go check it out if you're a new contributor. And yeah, let us know if it helps you. So here are some resources for someone taking their first steps into the community. So of course, there's the NumPy GitHub repo, the website repo, and the tutorials repo. I'll be going through all of these on the GitHub website after I'm done with this presentation. But these are the central places where the development takes place, where you can see what kind of help they need and engage with the community. Then there's some documents to help you get started. So there's setting up your development environment. Once you've maybe picked an issue or seen a pull request that you want to review on any of these repositories, it's important. The next step will be to set up your development environment. And these are some docs that can help you get started. We also have a GitHub code spaces development that we maintain. So feel free to use that as well. Although with both of these documents, I should mention that if you're setting it up for the first time, the library can be a little, I mean, you can face issues, of course, and it's always okay to reach out for help as long as we see that you've made a decent effort to follow the documentation. We're more than happy to help you get through the rest of the way. And it's also useful to see what kind of problems newcomers are facing so that we can improve the documentation as well. So please don't hesitate to reach out with any issues you have with development. Next, I also have linked the style guide. So with so many different contributors contributing to the documentation, it's important to maintain a central style of writing and of getting information across to keep it consistent across the versions. So the style guide should help you make quality pull requests. And then there's the development workflow, which talks about how do you make your pull request, which branch do you make your pull request from, and all these little things that just make your workflow smoother and makes the job of the maintainer better. So make sure to read these documents before you make your contribution. And these are very long documents. You don't have to like learn them from front to back or anything, but just make sure the parts that are relevant to you and your issue or your pull request or whatever you are doing is what you know, and you don't have to like, know all of it. There are also some reviewer guidelines. So I mentioned before that you can help review pull requests, but you also have to maintain certain guidelines. So you have to make sure you engage with the community in a polite, in a good faith manner, and make objective reviews and not subjective ones. So all of these things are written in the reviewer guidelines and important for someone who's looking to review to read. And here I have some NumPy-specific tips. You'll also find these in the documents I mentioned before, but I just wanted to highlight these because these are the common kind of things we see in the repo. And so the first one is that NumPy does not assign issues to people. So you don't have to ask for permission to work on an issue. You don't have to say that, oh, I'm claiming this issue or something like that, because that's not the guideline that we follow. Next, all the documentation issues and pull requests should begin with this DOC qualifier, because it helps the GitHub bot to like kind of tag these issues and pull requests properly with the documentation label. And it also gets the attention of the right people in the community. So people who review pull requests and stuff like that will are more likely to notice these. And then if you've reached out to people on any of the communication channels for help or any discussion and you haven't heard back in a couple of weeks, then you can leave a polite message asking for their attention or to remind them what you were talking about. So a couple of weeks is the general timeline we have for like the maximum what you can expect people to get back to you for. But I must say, usually people just review pull requests or comment on issues within a day or two. So that's not really a problem. And these are some other NumPy talks on the Data Umbrella channel. So there's NumPy, its history, governance, and contributing by Matty. He talks about the origins of NumPy and how the maintainer structure is there in the community. And also in general, how can you start contributing to the project, not just documentation specific things. And then there's Melissa with Intro to Sphinx for Python documentation. So Sphinx is a library that's used to generate the documentation for a lot of Python libraries, including NumPy. So that's also a useful thing to know when you're starting to make contributions to the documentation. And NumPy also has its own YouTube channel. It's been a while since the last upload, I think, but all the videos that are already there on that channel are quite a wealth of information and will be quite useful for anyone getting started or even a long-term user who wants more information on things. Now, here I have a link to the NumPy community page on the website that I will go through after this. So we have a mailing list that you can use to maybe propose new features, introduce yourself, and say that, okay, I have this skill set. How can I apply this to the community? And then you can also hold discussions on anything related to the NumPy project. Then we have the GitHub where all the development happens, where you can talk about features and everything again. We have a Slack where you can interact with certain members of the community and maybe interact with the maintainers and things like that. Then there's the community meetings, and there's a link to the calendar on the community page. So you can join in on the meetings and let us know what you're working on, or if you need help on something, or if you want to discuss anything. And there are conference sprints. So like PyData has NumPy sprints a lot of the times, or even SciPy. And all these places have sprints, and it's a nice way to meet people and engage with the community. So this is what I have for my presentation. Now I'm going to go over to the NumPy repository. So this is what you see when you go to github.com/numpy/numpy. This is the main repository for the library. And you can see there's a lot of things, but the doc is where we will have all the documentation stored, and this is where you'll make your changes and things like that. And if I go back to the issues tab, you'll find a lot of issues. So right now we have 2090 open, which is quite a few, and it would be nice to cut it down. But if you're looking for specifically documentation labeled issues, then you have to go to this labels tab. And then you have all these different tags here, and you can choose documentation, and you'll get all the documentation related issues, which are 201 right now, which is also a bit on the higher side. And then again, if you want to filter this again by newcomer friendly issues, then you have to use the tag called sprintable. This is the name for any beginner friendly, newcomer friendly issues. So I filtered it by sprintable, and there are a few that you can choose to work on if you're just starting. And this is some ways to get around the GitHub repo. You can also do similar filtration with the pull requests. So I can choose the documentation label and see all the open PRs for documentation. And you can maybe review one or two of them. And this is basically what the repo looks like, or how you would engage with it. Feel free to ask me any questions in the Q&A period if you want to look at more things, or if you want me to navigate into anything else. I'll also briefly show you the NumPy website, because we also do a lot of work on the NumPy website and would like contributors on it. So if you look at this tab right now, we have 3 other translations as Portuguese, Japanese, and Spanish. Now I want to translate it. Okay, so as you can see, these kind of adding new languages helps to increase the accessibility of the website, which is very important considering that our users have spread out over the world everywhere. So please feel free to contribute translations if you want to. And the community page is the one I was talking about, which has links to all these different platforms that we have, so that you can go talk to people, meet other people working on things that you're working on. And there's a link to the calendar here that you can use to join the meetings. And this is basically what I wanted to show. Maybe I'll also show the, so this is the contributors guide to the NumPy documentation. There's a few of these documents. If you see in this navigation section on the left, there's different documents for setting up your environment, building the docs for the development workflow and things like that, which I've linked in the presentation as well, which you'll have access to later on. So these are some of the documents that will help you get started. They're obviously quite long and maybe not very digestible, but feel free to let us know that as well, that if you find something is unnecessarily wordy or something, and we can try to improve these documents as well. So this is basically what I have, and I would love to answer some questions.
Great. There is a question, which is there an issue template we can follow?
Okay, yes, good question. Let me go back to the repo. So if I want to open a new issue, I'll go to this tab right here. And then you have a bunch of templates. So there's bug report, documentation, feature request, post install or importing issue, static typing, blank issue. This you is like a free for all. You can put in anything you want. Security vulnerabilities, help support, and development related matters. So yes, we do have quite a few templates, and they have everything that you'll need to create these issues.
Question for you. When a contributor contributes to NumPy, should there be an issue first that they may submit a pull request to, or they can, for example, if somebody sees a spelling error, they want to clarify something, they can submit a pull request without referencing an existing issue?
So yes, for things like spelling errors or style issues, it's okay to directly submit a pull request. You don't need to open an issue first. Issues, you have to open an issue first when you think that someone might not want that. So it's like kind of a new document or a new feature. Then when you want opinions from the community on whether you should actually add this to the documentation, then you open an issue first and then make a pull request. But for simple fixes, it's usually enough to just make the pull request.
Thank you. And we had another question, which is, are there templates when submitting pull requests? Are you able to show what that looks like?
There is no such template as such. Okay, let me. Okay, yes, you can see this. Okay. So if I want to make a new pull request, is you don't really have templates like for the issues, if that's what you're looking for. But what I would do is I would filter the pull requests by some which are closed, and then look for the documentation ones and basically follow what they've been doing. Because if it's been merged, it's like pretty sure it's up to the standards that the maintainers want, and so I would just follow um, the merged pull requests.
Thanks. So maybe one thing for the audience here is maybe you might want to make an issue and suggest a pull request template and see what the feedback is from the maintainers. And if you've seen pull request templates with other projects, or you think something that would be helpful for contributors, that's it's a great issue to open up. So something to think about.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks, Reshma.
So if people have any more questions, feel free to ask in the Q&A. And meanwhile, I will ask some questions that I have is, can you go over a few reasons why documentation can be such a great way to contribute to an open source project over starting with the code base?
First of all, I think it's quite involved to understand a project's development code base so that you can make code related contributions to it. And documentation, on the other hand, can be a little less involved. Um, the structure is the same as what you see on the rendered website documentation, so it's easy to navigate and find where the documents are kind of written or stored on the GitHub repo. Yeah, I think these things can make documentation issues easier to work on. Um, And I think with code-related pull requests, um, it's not necessary that you know exactly the feature or the bug that they're talking about, but with documentations, all of us read documentations all the time. So we do have some idea what's going on um, at any given moment. So, yeah.
Great. And while we wait for anybody else to ask questions, I do have a question for you, and hopefully you're able to answer it without thinking too much about it. Is you've been contributing for a few years. What are things that you learned along the way that you kind of wish you had known when you first started contributing?
When I first started contributing, I think I had some hangups about showing my pull requests in their draft stages. Like I would think that it has to be perfect before I submit it to the repo or the community. But it's actually really chill, and you can show any working drafts to the community for their opinions. And people usually never have, I would say, critical or harsh opinions on what you're submitting. It's very objective. It's like, is this necessary in the documentation? Is this adding an improvement? If yes, then it goes in. If no, then let's talk about how we can include those factors in. So yeah, the community has been really nice and welcoming. And over the years, I think I've just become it's just been easier to um, talk about things I want to do or to show things that I'm doing.
Thank you. Thank you. Another question I had is I know I've been on the NumPy mailing list for quite some time, and I have seen there's a series of meetings that NumPy has. And I was wondering if you could share the sort of meetings that you've had in the past. And I know you had mentioned that maybe some meetings may not be continuing because, of course, this is an open source project. Funding is limited, resources are limited. And so sometimes the meetings aren't always in session.
Yes. So we used to have a dedicated documentation meeting that has since stopped recently. And I think that's the only one that I am involved in that I can think of. But if you want to see the meetings that we do have running right now, then I can show you on the calendar. So let's go to the NumPy. Whoops, no, okay. So we have the community call, we have the triage call, the optimization team meeting, and the new contributors hour. So you can add these to your calendar. And if in the future any of these meetings have they're thinking about shutting it down or something like that, they'll let you know on the mailing list. Although I can say that the community call and the triage call will never be shut down. Those are the main calls, other meetings on this community.
Can you, while we're waiting for questions as well, since I have a long list of questions, can you also speak a bit about how in contributing, people can actually get just as much experience, if not more experience, say reviewing pull requests and things like that, than exclusively submitting pull requests?
Yeah, I think reviewing pull requests specifically gives you a lot of idea on what people are working on, what the project is prioritizing right now, um, see what kind of pull requests are considered um, high quality or mergeable and things like that. Um, and as I mentioned before, that if so, usually it's just the maintainers who are reviewing pull requests. So the circle of thought is quite small, and perspectives can be few. So it's so important and useful, specifically for documentation, to have your voices heard. If you are a user, then of course you can exactly get in what you want. And I think that's a great feature of open source projects.
And while we're waiting, I did have a question as well on can you speak a bit about how a community contributor goes from being a contributor to being on the NumPy team, what that path looks like?
I can speak a bit about it, although uh, I feel like I don't have the exact answer for it. But so what happened with me was I contributed some big changes in the documentation, so a few involved PRs, and then I also interacted with the community quite a bit in the initial couple of years after I finished my season of docs program. Um, I also used to help close issues, review pull requests, close pull requests, things like that. And then after a while, um, so the steering council decides if you get maintainer rights, and I think they just nominate you based on your GitHub activity or your activity on Slack and things like that.
Thank you. And another question is, can people get help with reviewing as newcomers? Newcomers. Person wrote, "I'd like to try, but I don't want to take on something I don't understand."
Yeah, so the review doesn't have to be like a complete one. You don't have to give a decision at the end, yes, let's merge this PR or not. It can be just on small parts of the PR. If you think for a documentation PR, if someone's added a new paragraph, you can just say, okay, I think after reading this paragraph that it explains what it set out to do properly. And that can be it, that is also very useful. So and then someone else can be like, okay, if there's consensus that this is useful and everything, okay, let's just merge it. So you don't have to do all of the work. You can just do little bits and pieces and just review parts that you feel confident about. And also, again, you can go back to closed pull requests of similar nature and see what kind of reviews other reviewers left. And then that gives you some idea of kind of the things that you should focus on in a pull request when you're reviewing. And that can be helpful.
Another question is, can you share more details on sprintable versus other issues? How different are they, and which one is best to get started?
Yeah, so the sprintable issues are basically the newcomer friendly ones. And by that I mean it's someone, a maintainer or someone thought that it should not take more than a couple of hours to get through. But they can be wrong, of course. Sometimes issues are more involved than people can make out at first. So that is what I mean by sprintable. So it should be less involved, should be quicker. But yeah, that's about it. And the other issues are not triaged, and they can take however much time, however much effort, and things like that.
So I see that there's a lot of interest in contributing to NumPy, and I see that the newcomers call is not sort of happening because there's limited resources. And so this is also a space where potentially people can actually help. It's not just contributing to NumPy documentation, but actually like organizing these intro calls so that people can contribute to the NumPy documentation. I see that there's a need there as well.
Yes, yeah, that's very important. Thanks. Organizing these meetings obviously take time and effort as well. So it is a good idea for um, new contributors or contributors in general to get into it. And if you're new, of course, it can feel intimidating. It can feel like, oh, I don't know what to talk about and things like that. But if you're a newcomer and you want to take on the newcomers call, then I think that's your field. You would know what to do. And there's also a lot of guidelines for taking these meetings in the NumPy archive repo. So if you do want to take up that role, you can approach maintainers, let them know that this might be something you're interested in. They might require you to be involved with the community for a little bit of time before you actually take on a role such as this. But it's not a great barrier or anything, and it should be a good place. Yeah.
And also, I shared the link to the community, which links to the Slack as well. So it seems that also people can go into the Slack and ask some other questions as well, right?
Yes, yeah. The Slack is for any questions, discussions, or any kind of interactions you want that can't happen on GitHub or mailing lists and things like that.
Okay. And one question I had for you, and maybe this will be the final question, I see no other, is I often, as a user of NumPy, Pandas, scikit-learn, when I do my Googling, it often leads me to say, to Stack Overflow, right, to answer some questions. And would you say that, you know, a possible place for contributing is to look at some of the examples that are provided on Stack Overflow, and making sure that they're in the documentation, because the documentation sometimes is missing that, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I do think that's a great way to get ideas for what to add to the documentation. The advantage of having those kind of information on the documentation itself is that the documentation is a true source. Like it's whatever is on the documentation has been verified by maintainers, has been verified to be true and useful. So getting it on the documentation is always a good idea. And places like Stack Overflow obviously have a lot of useful information that can get your things done. But then again, there's the topic of, is this reliable? Is this the true source?
And of course, I advocate for giving credit to the Stack Overflow person who answered the question as well. So I would advocate for that. And I see one question is, will we have access to the recording? Yes, this is being recorded. It will be posted to the Data Umbrella YouTube, usually by the end of the day, but within 24 hours. And with that, I see no further questions. And so the slides, you did mention it at the beginning that they will be in the NumPy repo, one of the repos on NumPy, and you'll share that with us?
Yes, I'm going to upload the slides to the NumPy archive repo, and I can share the link with you all.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know you are a very busy graduate student, so we really, really appreciate as you are.
Thanks for having me.
As you are finishing your graduate studies, taking the time to present to the community. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.